We ended up moving to the Bay Area, and for 2 months, while we were trying to figure things out, we lived at the Hampton Inn. And I'm not talking about a suite now. I'm talking about like the 4 of us. I love my wife and my daughters. I do, but we were all in a regular hotel room at the Hampton Inn for 2 months. And I was getting angry. I was frustrated because I had other pastors and other people talking about how God had called them into a new role and their house sold in 2 weeks. And they had multiple offers. There were so many offers they didn't know what to deal with. And I was getting pretty mad because I was living at the Hampton Inn in a regular room. And around that same time, I went on a Compassion International trip with pastors here at Bayside. So I had a chance to hang out with Pastor Ray and other pastors here. And I didn't tell Pastor Ray that I was staying at the Hampton Inn. But man, my attitude was like Hampton Inn-ish. So we go to Kenya on this Compassion International trip, and we end up in a town, one of the most poverty-stricken places on the planet. It's called Dandora. And there's so much poverty here that there's just hills, mountains of garbage. There are some families that are so poor, so destitute, that when they have a baby and they feel like they're too poor to provide this child a good life, they take the baby, they put the baby on a trash hill, they pray over the baby, and they walk away. Because they feel like it would be better for that baby to die on the trash dump than to raise it in such dire poverty. So there's a church, small little church, poor little church, in an area where there's not much clean running water, not much electricity, but there's this church, and we met this woman named Helen. And her and a few people from this small little poor church, they go and they stand there and they watch the family that puts their baby down on the trash dump. And when that family walks away, they come and they pray over that baby. And they give the baby a new name, and they take it back to their small little church and raise it. Now that did something to me. I mean, God sometimes has to invade our broken, dark souls and burn on the inside of us so that we get the right vision, so that we get the right perspective. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, all of a sudden, staying at the Hampton Inn wasn't that bad. Oh, God did something to my soul, and all of a sudden, my vision. I went back to the Hampton Inn. I go, they get free breakfast. Everybody here gets, man, I can eat 6 waffles every morning if I want to. Omelets too. Look at there, Canadian bacon. This is awesome. They put fresh cookies out here every evening when I come back to that. They change the sheets every day. They put brand new towels in here. This is kind of cool. All of a sudden, God changed my vision after he did something to my soul. And see, that's what Jesus is trying to get us to see here, that our vision, what we see, is so connected to our heart. But if your heart is corroded and contaminated, if your soul is broken and dark, if there's unforgiveness, if there's sustained anger, if there's tremendous anxiety in your soul, it hinders your ability to see the world the way God sees it. So sometimes we have to allow God to invade our soul so that we can see right, so that we can have heavenly desires, heavenly vision, and respond to what we see based on what's in our soul. Moses is a great example of this. We see this in the book of Exodus. Moses has a pretty privileged life. He grows up in Pharaoh's palace. It's pretty much nothing that he would want that he didn't get, but yet he was broken in his soul. He wasn't Pharaoh's biological son or grandson. So maybe there was brokenness in his soul because he grew up not knowing his biological father or his biological mother. Maybe he was struggling because the people, the Hebrews, they were being enslaved and oppressed. He looked like them. Maybe that created some kind of identity crisis in his soul. But one day he looks out and he sees someone that's working on behalf of Pharaoh who raised him, abusing someone who looks like him. And he goes and he murders the abuser. Now he's a murderer and he's on the run. And we find him in Exodus chapter 3. And he's a shepherd. He's on a mountain, and God shows up to this guy with a broken soul who's done wrong. God shows up in a burning bush and gives Moses a new vision for his life, that he could be a liberator, that he could be transformed. He could be someone who would go and lead a whole nation into freedom and into covenant relationship with God. When God dealt with his soul, it changed his vision and his mission for living. Would you allow God to invade your soul? Would you allow God? The burning bush is not out in front of you. God wants to burn something on the inside of you. God wants to burn truth and justice and love and reconciliation and transformation on the inside of you. It's already been decided in an invisible place. You don't have to accumulate things to be special, to be gifted, to be significant. You're already significant. The question becomes, will you let God burn on the inside of you so that you can be a blessing in a broken world? Heavenly desires over darkness of the soul.